the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Christ is risen.
Truly is risen.
Good morning, everybody. God bless you. Thank you for being here today. Over this Paschal season, we've been looking at the theme of Christian leadership as a natural development of discipleship. We have built a vision of Christian leadership based on the work of Protodeacon Peter Danilchik in his book, The Theology of Leadership. We looked at the 5 pillars of obedience, integrity, service, sacrifice, and shepherding. Last week, we considered how they're paralleled in the 5 porticos of the biblical requirements that God gives in Deuteronomy to his people. And we have seen how these principles beautifully are lived out by the myrrh-bearing women, the holy Photini, equal to the apostles, the Samaritan woman, and other saints. And we know, therefore, what healthy leadership looks like. But today, on the Sunday of the Blind Man, the gospel forces us to look at what happens when those pillars crumble. Today, we look at the pathology of leadership, when leadership goes bad. The story of the man born blind is one of the most dramatic healings in the Gospels. But it's also a story which can easily become a trap for us. It's very easy for us today to listen to this gospel and say, aha, those Pharisees up to no good again. They're the bad guys. We watch them interrogate the man, intimidate the parents, and finally cast him out of the assembly, the synagogue, in anger. And we look at them and think, oh, how could they be so arrogant? How could they be so blind? But brothers and sisters, if we use this gospel only to judge the bad leaders of the past or even our present, we may be missing the telling and even terrifying question that the Pharisees asked Jesus in the verses which immediately follow this reading, at the end of John chapter 9. If you continue the reading, you see that it will say, Jesus says to them, "For judgment I have come into this world, that those who do not see may see, and that those who see may be made blind." And the Pharisees, hearing this, turned to him and asked, "Are we blind also?" So that's the question for us today. Are we blind also? And if you want to answer that question quickly, to say, well, yes, I'm assuming you're going to say yes, Father David, then the question is, how are we blind also? My eyes are working. I can see you standing here, even though I need glasses. They work enough. How am I blind? And lest you think that this question only applies to the clergy or parish councils or religious people, listen to the words of Archbishop John Szachowski of blessed memory, who is quoted by Deacon Peter. He wrote, "Evil pastorship may be exercised by those who are given any degree of power over others. Parents, guardians, leaders, rulers, chiefs, teachers, tutors, every one of them in his sphere, if unenlightened by the light of Christ, may act as a conductor of the devil's lies." So, brothers and sisters, bad leadership does not begin typically with a desire to do evil. Sometimes a person starts off fine. But bad leadership begins with the illusion that we already know everything we need to know. Jesus looks at the Pharisees and he replies to them when they ask, "Are we blind also?" He says, "If you were blind, you would have no sin. But now you say, 'We see,' therefore your sin remains." Had they been humble and recognized the limits of their vision, the limits of their knowledge, the limits of their awareness, they would have had no sin. But because they assumed they were right about everything and had nothing left to learn, their sin remains. It's a powerful judgment. When we forget the pillars and porticos of leadership, we begin to act like these Pharisees in John chapter 9. But let's look at just 2 moments from today's gospel that show us what happens today when leaders begin from the perspective of "we see." The tragedy of John chapter 9 is that the man who had been begging in the dirt for decades was suddenly given his sight, and the religious leaders of his community did not care. They didn't rejoice with him. They didn't get excited. They didn't ask him, what is it like to see for the first time ever? Is it like how I feel? Do you see something I don't see? What is it? How do you feel? Instead, they treat him like he's a theological problem, that he's a Sabbath violation. He's a nuisance to them. Their leadership had devolved from true shepherding of the flock to simply managing the flock according to a list of rigorous rules. So how often do we act as gatekeepers, if you will, in our own spheres of influence? Think about your home, your workplace, your ministries here in the church and elsewhere. When someone comes to us with a messy, inconvenient problem, or maybe a wonderful bit of good news that doesn't quite fit into our expectations, do we see them as a human being to be served, or do we see them as an interruption of our schedule? Deacon Peter points out that bad leaders want to be served, not to serve. And if our leadership is just a way to enforce our own comfort and keep others at arm's length, we are indeed completely blind to the purpose of leadership. Second, in this story, we can see the blindness of ego. Look at the climax of the chapter. The Pharisees are interrogating the healed man, and the simple beggar finally speaks a basic truth to them. Whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I know, that though I was blind, now I see. And we know that God doesn't hear the prayers of sinners. Only someone with God's power could do what happened to me. So how do the leaders respond to this very basic, kind of common sense answer, very rational answer? They lose their minds. They shout, "You were completely born in sins, and you are teaching us? Get out!" And that's how they react to what is just the truth, just reality. The ultimate offense against the spirit of Christian service and sacrifice is the pathological need to be right. The Pharisees could not handle being corrected by someone that they considered beneath them, either morally inferior, socially inferior, intellectually inferior to them. So how do we handle criticism? Does a parent lose their temper the moment a child asks them a difficult question? If you've had kids, you've all gone through the why period, right? Why? 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 Every answer followed with another question. You don't lose your mind. You don't get upset with them. You love it. Does a manager belittle an employee who points out a flaw in a plan? Hopefully not. They want the plan to get corrected. Does a parish leader demand absolute respect from everyone around them, yet treat others with sarcasm and contempt? Would you feel comfortable with a leader like that? If we cannot learn from the people God has placed in our care, we are not protecting our own authority. We're just revealing our own blindness. In fact, we're undermining any authority we might have, any credibility we might have, because people will know we're full of it. If you look into the mirror of this gospel today, brothers and sisters, and you feel any sense of conviction, do not despair. Feeling that conviction is the first step towards regaining your sight. The only tragedy is looking into the mirror and saying, I have nothing wrong with me. I have no sins. I see and understand everything perfectly. Nothing to do here. Protodeacon Peter writes that the cure for spiritual blindness is the involvement of a trusted advisor, someone who will not shrink from telling us the truth about ourselves. Deacon Peter writes, the role of a trusted advisor can be filled by one's spouse's best friend, father confessor, even a fellow employee, manager, priest, deacon, or lay leader. Helpful, indeed necessary input from a group of people can also be acquired, which can have a major favorable impact on group leader relationships. Our current parish-wide effort at a SWOT, Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities, and Threats analysis, is an example of our whole community coming together to advise its leadership. So please, make sure that you fill in the form that we sent out to you by email. It's available also downstairs on the bulletin board in the library, and you can turn it in there if you don't want to turn it in online, because we need your feedback. We need your trusted advice. Remember back in Lent I talked about who are the four people that will raise the roof for you to let you get the healing you need. Who are your trusted advisors? They might be the same people. They might be a different group of people. Who are those people in your life? But each and every one of us also has an advisor who cannot be understated or underestimated. That, of course, is Christ himself. Look at what happens today at the end of the gospel. The leaders of the community cast out the blind man. They abandon him. They reject him. But Jesus heard that they had cast him out, and he went and found him. He went after him. He sought him out. Jesus comes to him and asks, "Do you believe in the Son of God?" The man says, "Lord, I believe," and he worshiped him. Jesus does not leave us in our blindness. He will not abandon us when we fail as leaders, and fail as leaders we will indeed. Even then, Christ comes, seeks us out, and finds us. He meets us in the sacrament of confession, in the Eucharist, in the honest, brutal self-examination of our own hearts, which lead us back to him in truth and love. Protodeacon Peter writes, leaders need to constantly and brutally address their own inadequacies, weaknesses, and sins. I don't like that he says brutally, but that's his words. The requirement for self-examination is critical, and little can be done with the one who does not realize this. Rigorous self-honesty, as they say in the 12 steps, is necessary for recovery. So, brothers and sisters, this week I challenge you as a kind of way to finish out this series. Next week, Deacon Peter himself will give us his words and conclude the series appropriately. But this week, I challenge you to stop looking at the bad leaders out in the world. It's easy. They're there. We all know. Okay? You're not learning anything or gaining any wisdom. Stop judging the Pharisees of the past. Instead, look at your own sphere of influence, your own wells, as I described it last week. Go back to your homes, to your offices, to your families. Go into your classrooms, your council meetings, your board meetings, etc. And stop saying, I see, I know, I understand. Start asking, where may I have been blind myself? Where may I not see? Then bow your head. Ask the Son of God to wash the clay from your eyes. Ask him to heal your blindness so that you can finally see the people around you, not as problems to be managed, but as images of Christ waiting to be served. Christ is risen. Truly.